Hi, I'm Raleigh Avery with Avery Knife Works, and today I'm going to show you some tips I've learned over the years on how to prevent and clean rust off of knife blades. Certain types of steel have different sensitivities to oxygen, and certain environments introduce oxygen at higher rates. For example, if you live in a coastal area with salty, humid air, your knife is going to have a greater propensity to rust. Now, I mentioned that different types of steel have different sensitivities to oxygen. We can break it down into two categories, but keep in mind there's truly a wide spectrum. The main difference between the two is added elements in stainless steel that severely decrease its sensitivity to oxygen. The main element in stainless steel that makes it have decreased sensitivity to oxygen is chromium. The more chromium there is in steel, the less it rusts, essentially. A couple other elements are copper and nickel. They add corrosion resistance to steel, which keeps it from rusting. When it comes to the spectrum of steel alloys, it's important to know what's in your steel so you have an idea of how sensitive to oxygen and rust your steel is going to be. I have in front of me some knives that I've made with a little bit of rust on them. Some are stainless, some are high carbon steel. Just because a knife is stainless steel doesn't mean it's stain proof. All steel with carbon and all steel in general will rust. This is one of my personal kitchen knives. Over the last couple of years, I've not really done a lot of maintenance on this knife, and we can start to see some rusty spots on the blade, on the ricasso, on the flats up here. I've got with me also a kitchen utility knife that's got some really low grade rust, if you will. They're just water spots, essentially. We're gonna definitely clean these off just like any other pieces of rust. And finally, a high carbon steel blade. These have the highest sensitivity to rust. They really don't have much added to them for corrosion resistance. This alloy is 80 CrV2. The CR stands for chromium, which is added for corrosion resistance, so it's better than some, but it still, as you can see, has a tendency to rust when exposed to water. This really bright rust is indicative of a short amount of time that oxygen has been exposed to the blade. A really dark red or brown sort of hue, like on this knife, which I didn't make, is indicative of rust that's been there for a long time. This is the kind of rust you want to be worried about because it's had time to really eat into the steel. When we're talking about surface level rust, we've got many methods that I'm going to show you to get that off easily and safely. Safety is a key thing here. We're talking about knives, especially ones that come from me that are very sharp. And I'm working with sharp knives here today. They're still shaving sharp. So if I can do this safely, you can too. For the actual cleaning and prevention of rust, I've got two different categories of tools that are going to help me. I've got chemical agents here. This is PB Blaster and WD-40. They're easily found in any hardware store or at Walmart or on Amazon. PB Blaster is a very thin oil which actually eats away at rust very effectively. WD-40 is another one that does the same thing. It's a close second to PB Blaster. I've got some physical abrasives that will remove the rust once the chemical agents have eaten away at it. These you can find in your house, I'm sure. Just steel wool, and I've got a Scotch-Brite pad with a handle so that it's really easy to use and scrape across the blade. These two products are made by Case Knives. They're specifically for rust removal on knife blades. You can buy them from me in my showroom or online or other reputable knife making dealers. The first thing I'm going to do is spray all of these blades down with oil so that it's actively eating away at the rust. And before I do that, I'm going to put on some gloves to keep my hands clean. Now that we've let the oil eat away at our rust for a little while, I'm going to start working on this with steel wool. This is something that everybody should have in their home. But before I start working, I want to go over something very important again. Throughout this entire cleaning process, I'm going to be very careful about the direction that I move with my hand. We're talking about a razor sharp edge here, and if I move in the wrong direction, I'm going to be cut and cut very badly. So always I'm going to work from the spine to the edge. I'm not going to work from the edge back towards myself. I'm not going to do circles. We're going to go one direction. I'll cross and out from the edge, not back into it. I'm just going to lightly start rubbing on these rust spots. So I'm just going to continue rubbing. I'm pushing the steel wool into the blade with my thumb. And you'll notice I'm not going from spine to edge here. I'm on the back side of the blade. I'm far enough away from the edge that I'm not really worried about it. I'm just going to keep moving and using new parts of the steel wool that are cleaner And you can see that we're already starting to brighten it up and get rid of some of those darker spots. Alright, I'm going to start working with the Scotch-Brite pad now. This is an excellent method. It's very easy to use, and this pad is nice and abrasive. The handle is really nice to hang on to. This is a kind of blade and a method where going spine to edge is very effective. If I put enough pressure, the rust comes off very easily. One thing that would help is just to make contact with the ground, make contact with some kind of surface so you can really push in and scrape that off. You'll notice I'm also going a certain direction because it follows the grind lines of the blade. You can see where I ground the steel to get it down to a sharpened edge. I want to follow those so that these little abrasive fibers get within the grind lines and pull rust out that's really deep that would be hard to get otherwise. And already we're seeing those orange spots start to disappear. Now that I've got something really aggressive, I'm going to start working on this worst example here and show you just how well these case erasers work. And very quickly you can see the worst of the rust is already off. We've lost that brown hue and we're down to some more polished steel. Just a couple swipes. I'm going to work a little bit with the second case eraser. This one's a little less abrasive, so it'll leave a nicer finish. I'm just going to use the exact same style of movement and motion that I've been using so far. And you might not be able to pick this up on the camera very well, but it does leave a much better finish as you graduate to this next grit. And if you've got some sandpaper around that's really high grit, you can do the same thing. You might want to tape it down to a block so you can have the same kind of motion where you can hang on to something and not have your finger so close to the edge or have the sandpaper hitting the edge so harsh here. I've got my case paste on a paper towel, so I'm ready to start rubbing it into the blade as an abrasive. And this knife is actually not sharpened, so this is a little easier for me to work in circles. Again, if your blade is sharpened at all, you're going to want to work from spine to edge like this. And it is going to be slower and a little bit harder, but it's the only way to do it properly. So I spent a little bit more time finishing up these knives, and we've got all of the rust off the blades. They look really great. For your knives, educate yourself on what kind of steel you're working with. This should set up correct expectations for the kind of maintenance that you'll be doing on your knives. Do things like put a little oil on them from time to time, keep them dry, keep them in their sheath, and know what are you going to be doing with your knife. How wet is your knife going to be? What kind of environment is your knife going to be in? These things will set you up for the correct expectations on maintenance. As with all nice things, you're going to have to put some care and time into your blades if you want to keep them in a primo state. For my knives that I make, my customers can send them back to me and I will get them back to mint condition free anytime for the lifetime of the blade. It usually costs $4 to $8 no matter where you are in the country to send the knife back to me, and it's well worth it. I'll save you the time, energy, and money you might put in to refurbishing your blade yourself, and again, you'll get it back in mint condition. After any of these processes, please be sure to clean your knife with soap and water before doing any food prep. I hope these tips have been super helpful. If you want to see more content like this, please like, follow, or subscribe. If I can be of any more assistance, please visit AveryKnifeWorks.com or come into my showroom in Banner Elk, North Carolina. Again, I'm Raleigh Avery with Avery Knife Works, and thanks for watching.